I had a really great day yesterday. It was Sunday. Started off my morning strong, did my morning routine. The sun was shining, the sky was blue. And then my mum came and picked me up and went and did a yoga class together in the city, which was great. It was a great way to start the day. Went for a walk down the beach with my mum afterwards, had some great chats, deep chats about life, childhood traumas, everything, a lot of stuff. But while I was doing yoga, the the yoga instructor or the teacher was keep talking about acceptance and how that was kind of the main theme for, well, not the main theme, but a theme for yesterday's class or yesterday's session was to, whenever you're relaxing, lay there and think about how you can practice acceptance. How can you accept things that have happened in your past, or is there anything that you're not accepting right now? And, the theme of acceptance kept coming up. And it was crazy because acceptance has been a big part of my journey. Well, it wasn't crazy, but what we talked about later was crazy. But acceptance has been a big part of my journey, and accepting myself, accepting my mistakes, accepting that things have gone exactly how they're meant to go. And I was lying on my mat and I was thinking about, this one podcast that I did a few years ago, start of 2022. And in particular, I remember this little piece of micro content, which is like little snippets that you'll see on Instagram or TikTok or whatever of, a smaller, say, 30-second piece from a full podcast. And I remember this little snippet that I posted. It kind of changed my life a little bit in a way. But in the snippet, I talked about acceptance and forgiveness, and about how those two words or those two things have been big parts of my journey. Accepting, my past mistakes and forgiving myself for my past mistakes. And I talked about, how if I didn't have those, then if I didn't have all the experiences that I've had in the past, then I wouldn't, I'll be the person I am today. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about acceptance, and we're going to talk about forgiveness in a way that's not the same as I talked about it in that podcast 2 years ago, because I learned something new yesterday, and I learned something from my mum, and I had a new realization about the word forgiveness. While I was lying there, I'm on the yoga mat, and every moment of silence, I'm thinking about it. I'm really just thinking about my whole journey. Yesterday, I had a really good yoga session by being like present, but also reflecting on what it took about every single decision, choice, regret, moment of happiness, sadness. Every little moment led me to that yoga mat, led me to thinking about how I can accept myself more and how I can accept things that have happened in my life. And afterwards, I'm walking down the beach with my mum. We had some great chats. We talked a lot about acceptance, forgiveness. And I talked about to my mum about how those two have been big, important parts of my life. And my mum said to me something that really clicked. And I adopted this philosophy from yesterday and will apply this moving forward in my life. And she said to me, it's really about acceptance, not so much forgiveness, because forgiveness means that you've done something wrong, or in your eyes, you feel like there's something to forgive yourself for. Whereas really there's nothing, like nothing ever goes wrong. Everything that happens is meant to happen. So if I make a mistake, there's nothing really to forgive myself for, because I was meant to make that mistake. And I was meant to, like, things pan out exactly how they're meant to pan out. So there's nothing to really forgive yourself or anyone about, really. It's more so about just accepting that that's what happened. How can we learn from it? How can we apply these learnings moving forward? How can I show up differently when this situation arises again? Because it probably will. Especially if there is something that you think you should forgive yourself for, because that lesson, if you feel like you handled a lesson or a situation wrong, or feel like you should have done it differently, the universe will present that situation to you again until you can handle it how you think you're meant to handle it, or go through it how you're meant to go through, or navigate how you're meant to navigate through it. With forgiveness, I've never actually made a mistake in my life. I'm perfect. And not even meaning that I'm perfect, but more so meaning like everything happens perfectly imperfect. Like everything happens exactly how it should be. So in essence, everything does happen perfectly, and I am perfect and you're perfect, and because what happens is perfect. So for example, I was thinking about this morning while I was walking down the beach. I was thinking about when I first did my ACL on my knee, when I got injured a few years ago, that training when I hurt myself, I didn't really warm up properly. And I used to beat myself up about this a lot because I never really took warming up and warming down that seriously. I was only 19 at the time and still learning about my body and things like that. And so I could say that I could forgive myself for not knowing any better at the time and forgive myself for not warming up and not warming down properly and not stretching and taking care of my body. I can forgive myself now because that was 6 years ago. But it's more so about accepting that it happened and not forgiving myself because I didn't even do anything wrong. Like I was meant to get injured. It's one of the most pivotal moments in my whole life was doing my ACL. If I didn't do my ACL, I would not be, well, I don't know if I would be yet, but I wouldn't have moved into the space of doing content and things like that. So there's nothing to forgive myself for. I didn't do anything wrong by not warming up properly before that training. I don't need to forgive myself for that. It happened. I accept it happened and it taught me a valuable lesson. I take very good care of my body and my mind and my spirit now because of that lesson. So if I didn't have that lesson, then I wouldn't even, I don't know if I would take care of myself and my body, especially as an athlete, or not as an athlete, but especially as someone that enjoys playing sport would do. And I take great care of my body now because of those lessons. So I'm not angry at myself. I don't feel like I should forgive myself for it because it needed to happen. It was necessary. And that's what I was writing in my journal this morning when I was journaling is that everything is necessary. Everything in life, there's no coincidences, there's no accidents, there's no, and then these are all my beliefs is that I believe that everything happens exactly how it's supposed to. And another example, and this is what I talked about in the podcast a couple of years ago about acceptance and forgiveness was I talked with my mum about this yesterday. It's probably one of the lowest points in my life. Actually, it was the lowest point of my life was my first proper relationship breakup at the start of 2021. And just with how some things ended. And I talked to my mum yesterday about this and I said it was probably the lowest point of my life. And I was so ashamed with how things ended on my end and things that I did wrong and things that ways I could have acted better and treated her better and things like that. And so many regrets and I really had to work hard to forgive myself because I said to my mum yesterday, I really hated the person that I was at that time, start of 2021, end of 2020. Like, I really just wanted, like I said to my mum yesterday, time was my biggest friend at that time because I just wanted, the more time that passed, the more that was left in the past and the more that I could try to forget about it and forget about that person that I was. But there is no forgetting. I needed to be that person. And so I used to talk about how I need to forgive myself for being that person, but forgiving, if I was to forgive myself for being that person, then I would be telling myself that I did something wrong or I needed to do something differently or that I need to forgive myself because yeah, those actions were wrong or and they were essentially wrong, but they weren't wrong in the way that meaning that like they didn't need to happen. It's like the saying of my plan is not always God's plan. You know, sometimes we think things don't go to plan, but we remember that God's plan is different to our plan or the universe's plan or whatever higher power you believe in. So it's not like something went wrong. It's just that it didn't go to our plan. And so I was so ashamed of this person that I was at the start of 2021. And I really had to work hard to forgive myself. But after talking to my mum yesterday, and she said, you know, it's more so about acceptance as opposed to forgiveness because I just have to accept that that happened. And it did happen. And it happened exactly how it should be, as painful and as overwhelming and frustrating and shameful as things may have gone. Because I really did feel shame. And it took me a while to accept it in myself that that's what happened. But I'm so proud of who I am today. Like, I know myself really well. I know exactly who I am, what I bring to the table. And I strongly believe that if I wasn't that person a couple of years ago, then I wouldn't be who I am today. And more so that I needed to be that person. I needed to learn those lessons. I need to practice acceptance in order to accept who I am today. You know, I feel like I've been on this big journey of self love and self acceptance, really. And maybe I wouldn't have this. Maybe I wouldn't accept myself for who I am if I didn't go through those things a few years ago. So as hard as things are, everything is necessary. Everything happens with a purpose. I've always said if I could take back my injury, I wouldn't. If I could take back these experiences I'm talking about right now, I wouldn't. And it's harder when there's someone else's feelings and um, well-being involved, because you would want to take that back because you don't want to put people through that. But I know for me, I needed it. I needed to go through that. I needed to feel like shit. I needed to feel like the worst human alive, because that's what I did feel like at the time. And I'm not even talking about these experiences to talk about them, but more so because I learned something so key yesterday, that nothing is by accident. We don't need to forgive ourselves for things, because it's good to forgive yourself. But if we've forgiven ourselves, or we think we need to forgive ourselves for our past mistakes and all that, then we're subconsciously or consciously telling ourselves that we did something wrong, or that we did something bad, or that this isn't how things should have went, or that things should have went differently. But I never forget, and I always remind myself that things happen exactly the way that they're meant to be. And what misses you was never meant for you, and what was meant for you will never miss you. So you never actually make a mistake. You never miss out on an opportunity. Accidents don't really happen. They happen purposefully and intentionally, because there's a purpose behind everything. And that's my number one teaching with acceptance, is that in order for me to become the person I am now, I needed to be all those past versions of myself, and to give those versions love and accept them. And I think a synonym for acceptance in this way is compassion and empathy, and having empathy and compassion for those past versions of yourself, because you did the best that you could with what you knew at the time. And I did the best when I made these mistakes. I was 21, and now I'm 25, and I think, man, I have so much more perspective and experience and thoughts and philosophies that would have carried me better back in when I was 21. But I needed to go through that to develop those experiences and those philosophies, and just all that all the learnings that came from it. So acceptance, acceptance, acceptance. You have to accept what's happened, and accept that things that do happen in the future and in the present are exactly what's meant to happen. And there's no accidents, there's no coincidences. Everything is divine. It's part of the divine plan. Sometimes it's not our plan, sometimes it's God's plan or the universe's plan. But there's a plan, and everything happens on purpose. Our teaching today, or our learning, or even just our discussion today, is about how you can learn more to accept yourself as opposed to forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself is important, but it's not necessary, really. It's more important, in my mind, as of yesterday, to accept yourself exactly as you are. Accept that things have gone exactly how they're meant to be, and navigate through life with acceptance. And that's what we're talking about today. Thank you heaps for listening to another episode of Yarns with Marns. Hope you can get something out of this episode. Even if you take away one thing, maybe you can resonate with one of my experiences, or maybe you feel something that I'm saying, and you can connect with it. Send me a message, tell me your thoughts on it, anything like that. If you share it to your social medias, tag me, I'll reshare it, and we'll keep spreading the love, keep spreading the message. And if you listen to this today on Monday, I hope everyone has a great week full of peace, love, and acceptance. And I'll see you in the next episode. Peace and love.